Step 7, the due diligence process. How to buy a home in St. Louis, Missouri. Just what is the due diligence in home buying process? What are inspections? What is home insurance, title and survey, the loan commitment? What are these for? Why does a buyer need them? These are great questions and ones the buyer should ask their buyer's agent. This is today's subject, so stay tuned. Hi, I'm Bob Weibrecht, a Missouri licensed realtor with Coldwell Banker Realty Gundaker in St. Louis, Missouri. If you're interested in all things real estate, please subscribe and click that bell icon for insights and tips into the residential real estate market. I publish new videos every Wednesday and you don't want to miss a thing. In the home buying process, the buyer is responsible for ensuring that the home they are buying is in the expected condition and is suitable for them and their loved ones. Fortunately, there are steps a buyer can take that will help avoid buyer's remorse and not end up owning their own personal money pit. This is where the due diligence process comes into play. The buyer's agent should advise the buyer on the most common items in the due diligence process. In the St. Louis market, that involves items such as inspections, homeowner's insurance, title work, survey, loan commitment, and the different time frames involved in each of these. The due diligence process occurs between the purchase offer acceptance date and the closing or settlement date. So what does that entail? This is the time that the buyer has to do the inspections, obtain homeowner's insurance, order the title and survey, submit documents required by the lender, and to have the appraisal ordered to obtain loan commitment. There are different time frames to each part of the due diligence process. Here in the St. Louis market, typically the entire process should take less than 30 days. Let's explore each part of the process a little deeper. Inspections. Using the St. Louis market as an example, the buyer will schedule the home inspections. Depending on how the purchase offer is written, the buyer may have up to 10 calendar days after acceptance date to get the inspections done. So how does the buyer find a home inspector? What are the home inspections? Can the buyer opt out of inspecting the home? These are great questions, so let's go on. It is advisable that you find a professional home inspector. Ask for referrals from people who have recently bought a home. Ask your buyer's agent, who has probably worked with several inspectors, for recommendations. Here are some of the most common inspections in the St. Louis area. Your buyer's agent can review the appropriate inspections for your area. 1. The building inspection. 2. PEST or termite inspections. 3. Radon gas inspections. 4. Sewer lateral, or if equipped, well and septic. And number 5, natural gas or propane, if the home has gas appliances. The good news is most building inspection companies can schedule all the buyer's inspections at the same time. The bad news is they want to be paid at or before the time of service. Depending on what inspections the buyer wants, this may add up to several hundreds of dollars. But compare that to the cost of moving into a home and finding out it needs a new roof or the sewer line is broken. That alone can cost several thousands of dollars. So should a buyer opt out of inspections? I think most buyer's agents will say no. If possible, the buyer should attend the inspections. This way the buyer will know firsthand as to any issues uncovered and can ask questions directly to the inspectors. The inspector's findings will be sent to the buyer and the buyer's agents. The buyer should review the reports promptly with their agent to decide on the next course of action. For inspections here, the buyer typically has 10 calendar days after the acceptance date to do the inspections. This period ends when the time expires or when an inspection notice is given to the seller. Referring to, that's right, you guessed it, the St. Louis real estate market, the buyer has one of 3 choices when it comes to the inspection notice. 1, the buyer will take the house as is. Or 2, The buyer will ask the seller to make repairs or a financial adjustment on the home. This activates a 10-day inspection resolution period where the buyer and seller negotiate requests for repairs. Or 3, the buyer may exit the contract provided a major inspection, such as a building inspection, is done by a professional home inspector. Ask your buyer agent for details on this. Homeowners insurance. There is a 10-day period to obtain homeowners insurance. The buyer shops for homeowners insurance on the home they are buying. Sometimes if a home has had too many claims against us, the insurance rate may be substantial. It's a good thing to know this up front. Title and survey. This is a 25-day period from the acceptance date for the title and survey work. Here, the title company will check for any claims against the property to ensure the home is free of any encumbrances or clouds on the title. If a survey is requested, it will be done at this time also. There's usually a fee of a few $100s, depending on the size of the lot, and is typically paid at closing. Be sure to review the reports for any issues that may restrict your enjoyment of the home. Loan commitment. The buyer's loan commitment date is determined with the lender and the desired closing and possession dates. It is during this time the home appraisal is done. Typically, the loan commitment is a few days prior to closing. The lender will work with the appropriate neutral third party, such as a title company here in St. Louis, or a real estate attorney or escrow company, depending on what's proper in your area. Other details. Before the closing, the buyer and the buyer's agents will do what is known as a final walkthrough of the home. This is done a day or two prior to closing and may vary in your area. It's during this time the buyer will check that the seller has removed their belongings, items agreed to remain are there, and those to be removed are gone, and any repairs are done. About a week or so before closing, the buyer should order their utilities, send out change of address information to appropriate parties, check with the local municipality for any required occupancy permits. Now, this sounds like a lot to keep track of, and it can be overwhelming. This is why you have a buyer's agent who will manage the due diligence process. So now you know the 7th step in buying a home, the due diligence process. But do you know about the 8th and final step, the closing? That's next time on How to Buy a Home with HeyBobStL.com. Make it a great day.